Entrepreneurship under the banner of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. So this morning, we're going to be focusing on the creative and cultural industries. And many of you who have been following us for months now know that we have been embarking on an exercise to map the industries or start the process of mapping these industries. Well, great news. This morning, we have to share with you some of the findings of the survey instrument and some of the preliminary findings of the report itself. Some exciting times for the creative industry, exciting times generally speaking for Jamaica. Yes, COVID brings excitement as well, and we know that. So I'm going to ask our CEO, Ms. Valerie Vieira, just to bring some brief remarks. No, because Ms. V tells me that she is an active part of the creative industry as a dancer. Well, the truth is that the policies and programs that she brings to the Jamaica Business Development Corporation is nothing short of creative and innovative as well. So she is indeed a part of the creative and cultural industries in Jamaica. So, Ms. V, over to you, your remarks.
Thank you very much, Harry. And welcome to our team overseas and our team in Jamaica. We talk about join up development. So we are one big team, each of us playing our part in moving forward. Now, the creative and cultural industry really reflects the heartbeat of our nation, because in Jamaica, everybody's on the move. Just play one little bit of music or start saying some poetry and people start moving without even thinking about it. I think our babies born dancing. But what we're trying to do, and most of our clients, the MSMEs, fall within the cultural and creative industries, right, Harry? And therefore, this whole business of mapping and ensuring that all the powers that be understand the extensive and expansiveness of this industry is critical for us to really, as a nation, really utilize and benefit from the heartbeat of our country. Over the years, we have just thought of creative industries as who you see on stage. Even me, I'm learning how expansive and inclusive this industry is. And I think this is one of the big statements that we want to make out of the mapping exercise, to say, look, it's beyond what we normally distinguish as the creative industries. And that is critical. Very important for us also is the issue of collecting, dissecting, interpreting, and communicating the whole data aspect of the industry. Because as we batter and push in the thrust with our stakeholders, especially our government, to get funding and other kinds of important support for the sector, we can't just say it's a nice thing to do. We want to have the argument solid in all corners, and having proper and important data is a big part of telling that story. So collecting the data, putting it in a readable and interpretation for all to understand. And this is something we push for at JBDC, that the language be inclusive. Sometimes technical people get excited in their little world and they use the language and so on, and only they understand. We have long come to understand at JBDC that information has to be consumable. And so it's a big part of it as well, that we get outside of the norm in many things. And so we have Statin, for instance, on board, which is a fairly new partner, but that was definitely a deficiency, a big gap that we hope to fill, that we must fill in this process of mapping. I know that this is phase one, Nordicity, but we have to start with step one. And then we move up to the other important steps along the way. But we have to have a solid foundation to start with. What is important for us is that the major stakeholders have committed to being on board, and our Minister of Culture is not with us this morning because she has other commitments, but she does send her regards, and we know, we feel, we experience her support as we move in this area. So Minister Grange and her team, they have been an important stakeholder in this process, I just want to make that point because even though she's not physically here this morning, she is definitely in spirit, and so are members of her team. Our own ministry, we're working along with them as well, and indeed the private sector in general. I need not talk about the creative industry clients because they're so happy that something is at last being done. And as we often say, from fragmentation to a more rational approach to the development of this important industry. We're going to be looking at including other agencies such as our JIPA, Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, because we have to protect as we expose. It is the process being led by our Deputy CEO, Harold, here. And it's important because Harry is crossing many rivers because he's also a creative. Okay, I dance when he sings, okay? I distract the clients because I dance so well. But he doesn't pay me, by the way, and I think he hopes that I would stop. But that's another story. We'll deal with at another time. But it's important that he's leading because he understands what is happening in the sector, how we have limited ourselves as a nation from supporting and benefiting our creatives to really make their mark even more than we are doing. We on the world stage in some aspects, but we have much more to put there. And Harry understands that, and he has his links in the sector. And therefore, I know it is in good hands under his leadership. So this morning is important, and I'm going to pass over to Harry and tune in myself to understand what is happening, where we're at, and just to see the future as we move forward. And Nordicity, you have an important role. I know you're going to be sharing some important information as you have done your research in phase one. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that as well and seeing how, in this beautiful context of the Global Entrepreneur Week, that we are really touching at the heart of the culture and creative industry of our nation, which, as I said before, is our heartbeat. So it's appropriate for us to be doing this at this time and in this context. So, Harry, you're in charge, and I will keep dancing on the side. He will sing, I will still dance. They might put the camera on me, but it doesn't matter. You know I'm dancing. This side, okay? So thank you very much, and I think we'll have an exciting session led by Harry this morning.
Thank you very much, Ms. V. Um, and yes, the cameras will be on you as well as you dance. One of our important partners in this journey thus far has been the British Council. They came on board with us from very early, and it is through their resources that we were able to contract the consultant Nordicity. At this time, I want to invite Pablo Rossello. I hope I pronounced your name, the last name correctly, Pablo. He's the Director of Arts for the Americas in the British Council. Pablo, I invite you to bring remarks.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Pablo.
Hello, Carol. Good morning. Sorry, I was just unmuted. Hello, everyone. I'm Pablo Rossello. I'm the Director of Arts for the British Council in the Americas, and I'm currently calling in from Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I'm delighted to join you here. I was thinking earlier this morning, I was going through my notes, and I was sort of reminded about the very difficult circumstances in which the initial mapping exercise and report carried through, and led me again to think about the centrality of data in current cultural policy making, not just only from a creative economy perspective, that is the understanding of the priority sectors in culture in Jamaica, the understanding of areas of opportunities, and the overall strengthening of the case for culture as an economic sector in its competition for public funds, but more importantly, and in the current context of a pandemic that has decimated the global cultural sector like very other sectors, about the importance of data in directing governments in the support of the sector's recovery. So I just wanted to start by mentioning that. And that mapping, the setting of observatories, the depuration of national statistics to understand the economic behavior of culture in a national economy, all of this is an essential part of our global economy program in the British Council that seeks and has sought since the past 20 years to promote a very different understanding of culture as an industry, and of the type of support that government to give. Our program, which runs in Jamaica, but also in Mexico, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Peru, and in Chile, in the Americas, in this region, focuses on sharing the experience of the UK government, its various agencies, its various experts in the implementation of this new paradigm in cultural policy that understands culture as an engine for economic development and job generation, and that supports not only the artists, but the wider ecosystem, from educators to higher education institutions, and to producers, distributors, and creative entrepreneurs. Linked to this, and often forgotten, is the relationship between sustainable cultural sectors and cultural diversity. And that's something that is very close to my heart, and I just want to mention it in this context. Because in the current globalized cultural space, everybody can access everyone else's culture. Markets have increased, opportunities have increased, but also has competition. So without solid, sustainable local creative economies, diversity is really a threat. And this is a compromise that the British Council and the UK are signatories of the UNESCO Convention on Cultural Diversity we live in. And that is also of particular relevance to countries like Jamaica, which are already an important player in global culture. I just want to thank the team at Nordicity, our partners, the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, as well as the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, my colleagues at the British Council in Kingston as well, and especially to all the participants in this evaluation. They've given up their time, they've shown engagement, but also they've shown enormous flexibility in how they've engaged with this report, which has ended up being largely an online affair. We're really honored to have been part of this initiative and really hope this modest intervention for the direction and indeed the success of the new National Creative and Cultural Industries Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pablo. And rest assured that British Council is now considered family. That means that we'll be popping up for Sunday dinner every now and again, and the Sunday dinner might come in the form of further support. So thank you so much to the British Council.
Absolutely, we hope so. I don't know if I'm still unmuted. I don't seem to have control over the mic here, but yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you so much, Pablo, and thanks again to the British Council in general. This started, I must pay, I say a big up to Olenka Jacobs-Barnick, who was the country manager at the time of our signing of this agreement, and she definitely did go a far way in terms of pushing this particular project, and I thank you. I have no doubt that our work will continue together, the British Council, and we'll do for lots more together in the coming months and years in this sector. So, before I introduce our representative from Nordicity, who is Stephen, who has become an honorary Jamaican almost. The entire Nordicity team have become honorary Jamaicans. I want to just give you a little context of the project itself and what has been achieved, generally speaking, just from an administrative standpoint, so that you are aware of where we are at and the journey that we have embarked on thus far. So, in collaboration with the British Council, we embarked on a situation analysis of the, aka mapping the beginning stages of the mapping of the cultural and creative industries in Jamaica. So it is a review and update of existing strategies and action plans for the development of the CCI in Jamaica, and as a first step towards a comprehensive mapping of the industry. So We looked at the 9 subsectors, if you will, or industries, some persons call them, that have been categorized by the National Cultural and Creative Industries Commission in Jamaica. And those categories include music, entertainment, industry, publishing, literary as one category, architecture, design as number 2, art, craft, antiques, fine art as 3, 4, audiovisual, film, video, media arts, animation, broadcasting, 5, performing arts and theater, 6, fashion and the fashion industry, 7, cultural, culinary and gastronomy, 8, sports industry, 9, tools of trade. We didn't get in the period of time to touch on them all, but we touched on most, and Stephen will go into the details where that is concerned. So the situation analysis of the for the development of the cultural and creative industries in Jamaica is what the project is called. The main findings and recommendations in the research will be presented this morning. And I want to tell you first, just for you to set a context as to what we sought as the objectives of the work. We wanted to look at the definition of the creative economy in terms of the substantive elements, the ecosystem, numbers of individuals employed, and so on. We needed a guide as to the needs of the MSMEs in the industries, investment readiness of MSMEs, and available investment opportunities that can be further researched. We wanted a guide for how the policy imperatives and direction concerning creative economy can be further researched. We wanted some indication as to the value, or some beginning or preliminary indication as to the value of the industry. That we will discuss that a little further, because that, as we know, takes a lot of it's an involved process, and certainly the partnership with Statin, we believe, will go much further in terms of establishing that in the second phase of the work that we're going to be doing. We wanted to look at the main challenges and opportunities that business in the CCIs face, and we wanted, of course, to glean recommendations as to the immediate steps forward that would be required, and of course, medium-term actions that we would need to pursue. So the milestones to date is that the project was officially launched in August of 2019. We established an advisory committee in December of 2019. The actual work with Nordicity, contracting them, and actually began work in January of 2020. We had face-to-face consultations late January and February of 2020. We even had a knowledge sharing workshop in February of 2020. And then, of course, in March, everybody knows what happened in March. March, you had COVID. So that meant that the entire program, which the second phase of the program, had to do with face-to-face group sharing and things of that nature. That was immediately put on pause, on hold, almost indefinitely. But what JBDC did was proceeded. We took the decision to enter into a series of knowledge sharing exercises. We call them In Concert series, the JBDC In Concert series, where we had, I don't know, enough, probably about 20 or so JBDC In Concert series, focusing on specific areas within the creative and cultural industries, focusing on specific subsectors at certain times. We focus on music, we focus on the performing arts, focus on literary arts. We focus on film and animation. We had a week focusing on the gaming industry and so on, to bring to the fore not only challenges, but highlight some successes and some work and some great things that entrepreneurs are doing in the space. The other thing I want to point out is that from the onset, we recognized that it had to be a participatory approach that we had to take, because the ecosystem is wide and vast, and many players involved, both private and public sector, academia involved, as well as government, as well as many practitioners who cross many boundaries where that is concerned. So it had to be a participatory approach. I mentioned earlier that we created an advisory committee, and that advisory committee included persons from Ministry of Culture, Gender and Entertainment, Marissa, representative from PIOJ, representative from Statin, representative from JAMPRO, Renee Robinson, representative from the university, academia, Franklin Johnson. We had Dr. Dennis Howard and Tyrone Wilson on there. I want to, even before Nordicity goes into their presentation, which will happen just now, I want to acknowledge the efforts of the Nordicity team. Peter, Stephen, Natalia, and the rest of the team have become JBDC. I was going to say employees, but we can't pay them, so it's family, mostly. And certainly they have put major effort in it and have adopted the project. And I think have fallen in love in a way with Jamaica in the process. So big up to the Nordicity team. I already big up British Council. I want to say a big shout out in particular to the industry associations and the industry practitioners. Big up because we approached a number of practitioners, a number of association heads and so on for conversations, for involvement in the In Concert series, and everyone participated very, very willingly. And I think partially too, I think there's a hunger for something to happen really in the cultural and creative industries, and persons understood the gravity of the work that we were trying to do, and the fact that we really needed to push the envelope as it relates to empirical data, such that creative industries can be at the table at all times, both making decisions and, of course, when shares are being sorted out or given out. Yeah, it's very important. Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Ms. V spoke about that, but I want to again big up the support that we get. Statin. Statin has been an enthusiastic partner. We have had meetings with them, and they have come on board, and they have really excited about doing some work. And of course, finally, the JBDC team for the support that you guys have given to the process thus far. The last thing I want to say before I invite Stephen to talk is that to remind you that what we did here is the first step. It's not the final goal. It is not the 100-meter mark. This is not a 100-meter dash. It is more like a 4x4. I wouldn't say marathon. You know which marathon, because I want to really have patience for marathon. But it's more like a 4x4 relay, that each leg is important. After this, we will discuss what the next steps are. Most persons, most other economies, when they do a mapping of their economy, it takes, on average, 2 to 3 years to get all of what is all of the data that is required for the mapping, and to get the actions of the various stakeholders towards it. So this is our first step. And remember, we spoke about the fragmented nature of the ecosystem to begin with. So I encourage you to be patient, but we're heading somewhere. We are heading somewhere. We're embarked on a journey. We are heading in the right direction. We're heading somewhere, and we have started. So this is my final word to you before I pass over to Stephen Hignell, who is an associate director. I don't remember your exact title, Stephen, but you're just a member of the Nordicity team, and of course a huge supporter of the work that we are doing at JBDC and in Jamaica in general, and also the lead consultant on this particular project. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Stephen, for you to make your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Harold, and thanks, Pablo, and everybody for the warm welcome. So it's great that we're finally here today, where we can share some of our findings from the research. It's been, as Harold has mentioned, it's been quite a journey. We've had some challenges with COVID-19 and so forth, but we've also found some interesting ways to come around that, and there's actually interesting benefits to the work in terms of accessing, reaching. So I'm going to share my screen. So, and as the screen is starting up, I will just mention my colleagues as well, Peter Lyman, Natalia Alekska, and Nikita Gopal, who have been working with me on this project, alongside all of the help provided by British Council. Together as a family, as said, and being impossible to do. Now, just to bring us back to what we were initially commissioned to do, that was to understand what the state of the this cultural and creative industries were, looking at the challenges and opportunities, to identify the stakeholders and the sources of data, to develop a framework for impact assessment, and the foundation for what would and could roll out to be an industry strategy and a series of recommendations. Also critical to this was a degree of capacity building and knowledge transfer conducted throughout the journey, and all of this culminating into a series of recommendations for the medium term and the long term. To support.
Hi, Stephen. Can you we're having a little challenge hearing you. Is it possible for you to turn off your video so that because I know you're perhaps having some bandwidth issues, so maybe if you could turn off the video feed so we can probably hear you better.
Okay, hopefully this works a little bit better. So the journey of the CCIs in terms of mapping and how we've gotten to where we are is, it hasn't started in this process, and it also won't finish in this process. Harold has said it is a journey going back to the Center for Innovation Content. We can look back to the National Cultural Creative Industries Commission, the Culture and Creative Industries Policy Division of the Ministry of Culture.
Of creative industries in the revised MSME and entrepreneurship policy. Also looking at in the past at the creative industries strategic plan and our National Cultural and Creative Industries Council, which was established just recently last year, and very recently the National Draft Policy in 2020. Approach that we've taken to the to this project has involved a number of different layers, a number of different levels of work. We started off with a literature review, desk research, and exploring all of the secondary data available. We conducted field work and consultations, working very closely with JBDC and their networks, and looking to expand this work and network to COVID-19. We've undertaken a number of interviews with key stakeholders from across the sector, and we've surveyed over 570 industry members. And I'll just mention that the survey is something that I think JBDC and the British Council can be, and the industry itself actually can be exceptionally proud of, because for the first survey of its kind, this is an exceptional number. It's a really strong reach, and really impressive to say that the wealth of data that has come through has been very substantial. We've also conducted roundtables with the industry and delivered capacity building in EC very closely throughout the course of the project. We delivered or co-delivered 4 webinars reaching over 190 participants. And all of this has come together through a deep dive analysis, with putting us into a position to finalize the mapping exercise and take us to the next step, economic impact. In the knowledge transfer exercise, we had 4 significant sessions, one on economic impact analysis, and there we looked very closely at the method, the process, the challenges and concerns, but also the opportunity and the potential of economic impact analysis. Secondly, very specifically, the CCI mapping process and how the CCI mapping would be industry and to the industry representatives, and what the next steps for this could be, and embedding legacy into the process, as well as how the mapping exercise would help the creative industries actually the challenges presented by COVID-19. We looked at the third session to development of, and this was the sort of the capacity building at an institutionalization level that is sought to bring real life practical examples from other institutions and associations from international sources to tell their stories and their case studies and to share knowledge and information. The fourth session, we looked at digital market development strategy, where we had stakeholders from across all forms of the sector delivering a very practical workshop and involving, again, international guest speakers and case studies to talk through experience and means of addressing opportunities and challenges. The first phase is nearly complete, and as we're wrapping up the validation of the mapping, we do look to the future as the second phase, which would be the deep dive analysis of the sector and the impact assessment, which would subsequently lead towards strategic planning and implementation. Now the findings. So looking into the sector, we found that the tradition of culture and creativity in Jamaica is it's historic, and it's the envy of many countries and sectors internationally. In fact, the brand Jamaica is extraordinary, and there has been a lot of interest in trying to quantify what is the value of the brand Jamaica. And it's also recognized that the cultural and creative industries play a very central, a very crucial role in this wider brand Jamaica. Sometimes it can almost feel that the CCIs see themselves as the center of the brand Jamaica, but it's important to think about the wider context and stakeholders. The sector has a significant social impact as well as in economic impact. I think this is recognized by and large by the sector, but there an understanding of what the quantification of this is, what the level or degree of that is. And then beyond the sector, there's concern that there really isn't any sort of real understanding or appreciation of the true value of these sectors, particularly vis-a-vis other traditional bricks and mortar sectors and so forth. This being assessed to the greatest extent possible by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, where it takes a wide definition that includes sport and events to assess that it employs over 73,000 people, which accounts for 5.7% of the labor force. And that would generate 195 billion Jamaican dollars, which would account for 9.3% of GDP. Now, nightlife is a significant part of this equation, perhaps the largest, at an employment of 28,000 people and $28 billion per year. The fashion and model industry generating just under 670 million per year. The film and cinema sector employing over 2,500 people and generating 3.5 billion per year. Sports employing 1,000 employees and generating 12 billion per year. And the copyright-based industries employing 40,000 people. When we look to defining the industries, we've really started from a very Jamaica-centric perspective. It's really important to look at the industries as they fit the local context, whilst taking into consideration global standard approach. Now, UNESCO, the British Council, and the UK's Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport have established frameworks for the cultural sector, and they have really paved the way for this form of mapping exercise and economic impact assessment that would follow subsequently. In the Jamaican context, we have taken very seriously the importance of sport and gastronomy and the culinary arts, which would fit within the definition. And for the sake of the economic impact assessment, and deeper analysis, these potentially would and should be assessed. However, at this time, the focus would be on the music, literature, publishing, visual arts design, film, television, digital media, animation, and fashion and museum sectors. When we look at the stakeholder groups in the sector, we break them down into a number of categories. So we have the artists in the area, as well as the freelancers and entrepreneurs, and then the companies and enterprises themselves. Employed by those companies would be the workers or the employees. And then overarching, we've got the government and educational institutions and associations and representative bodies. Capturing these stakeholders in this way will enable not only for the mapping and impact assessment to be done efficiently and effectively, but it's also really important for the understanding and appreciation and decision-making amongst the sector themselves. And here we can see the stakeholder groups mapped out in these categories. Of course, this isn't an exhaustive fitting into a screen, but it gives an idea of how this looks on a screen. So diving into the sectors, we, in our survey and through our consultations, have across the sector, interestingly enough, we had a very, very strong response rate on the survey from the visual arts and performing arts and design sectors. It's really, really exciting to see that engagement. And with a sample size of 556 respondents, we're also very happy with the number of respondents from museums and the culinary sector, fashion, digital media, and upwards. Even with what might look like a low response rate there, considering the sample size, it's really, really something we can be happy about. Now, we've looked at each of those specifically, and what we found is that across the sectors, many of the same challenges persist. Now, not in every case and not in every sector, but by and large, a challenge that was experienced in the publishing sector, and so we've taken a review of the sectors themselves, but also, more importantly, a review of the issues facing the industry as a whole. Now, we understand, I think we've all discussed today or heard today a couple of times that there is a lack of industry data. We should mention that there is some data, but it's complete, it's not always accurate, and it's not always up to date or relevant. But there is, a significant amount of data available. Without this data, the industry itself tends to forge its own path ahead and lacks the ability to have a cohesive or coordinated manner in doing so. At the same time, the government, hearing too many different stories from different voices, when really the government, in order to be effective, really needs to hear one clear message from many voices. So that understanding of what the sector needs is crucial, both for the sector, but very importantly for government and other stakeholders like or support bodies and so on. The limited understanding of the challenges and opportunities really is a barrier to support. And so that data is required not only to know where to support and how to support, but also it's required to build that rationale for support and then the ongoing monitoring and evaluation of that support. The value perception of the cultural industries, that's both within the sector and beyond the sector. So many cultural industry stakeholders have indicated they do have a supportive family and a very supportive social environment for working in the sector. There's also a lot of anecdotal evidence that many people with less exposure to the sector have social barriers and do have a difficult time in engaging or advance a career or a livelihood or an interest in the industry. The creative industries and cultural industries are big employers. They're often very large employers, or can employ many people in short periods of time. And they can also absorb labor from declining sectors of the economy very quickly and very easily. And it enables for a very nimble and proactive industry that can foster inclusive growth. The employment potential of the industry is significant, and the industry can be seen as a driver of entrepreneurship, inclusive growth, and sustainable development. We can see in Jamaica that the sector is comprised of a large, wide-ranging group of stakeholders. So we can see that, there are many owners of small businesses, many individuals working in the sector as artists or creatives, and a significant number of freelancers. There's a deep appreciation for the nimbleness and the mobility of this sort of middle stand or middle micro small enterprises. Oops. The other factor is diversity and inclusion in the industry, and here we can see that the sector has a significant representation from. We can see that the respondents to the survey had 61% women. Of course, what needs to be looked at is who are enrolled, or what are these 61% of women doing in the sector, and what sort of degree of are they in? So that would be a next level of analysis for the industry. We can also see that the industry is quite mixed in terms of age groups, with quite a large number of individuals in the sort of 25 to 34 age range. But traditionally and globally, the industry skews very young, and so it's very encouraging to see both a large number of young people and a large number of people that aren't so young. Now, education is crucial for the cultural and creative industries. We can see here that, from the responses to our survey, that the sector is very well educated. We can see that over 3/4 of our survey respondents have identified as having attained a tertiary education. But at the same time, many of the skills that are obtained in this form of education are not, they're great for creative development, but aren't always suited for the more sort of practical skills and more business skills and entrepreneurial elements that are so crucial for the creative industries. The industry faces a number of barriers to education. So overwards of respondents to our survey have indicated that they did experience barriers to training and skills in education. And by far, the biggest barrier was affordability, as well as accessibility of nearby training following suit. Some of the other challenges there were relevant, but not nearly as of note. Now, there's a significant appetite to enhance the skills and talent pipeline. Speaking to businesses, looking to grow or expand their workforce or expand their services and their business opportunities. They really want to grow that talent pipeline, as well as thinking about the generation of artists and creators that are coming up to help shape the future of what is Brand Jamaica and the sort of cultural innovation and needs of the industry. Increasing awareness of sector opportunities and resources was seen as the biggest opportunity. And that awareness is, I think, really, because awareness can be one of the easiest things or one of the simplest things to accomplish in terms of financing or funding, because it's about rather than creating something new, it's about engaging and communicating and being more inclusive. Again, this links back to the story of inclusivity. There's also interest in, or the demand for, a crucial aspect for talent development, and then a number of other sort of interventions or activities were sought, such as short-term training and access to mentors and forms of training. The creative industries and cultural industries present for this inclusive growth through the business aspect, the entrepreneurial aspect, and we can see that the industry is comprised of a large number of individual creators and freelancers, a large gig economy, which is not fully having its skills needs met. So that those people operating in this area don't necessarily see themselves as entrepreneurs, artists, designers don't see themselves as micro businesses, and those skills are really holding them back. The lack of those skills are holding them back. Market development is therefore considered the most important of the growth opportunities for these businesses in generating revenues, and this is followed by increasing their business skills. And I think really these two are interrelated. But the focus on creative skills and technical is also noted, followed by international exports. Now, despite global recognition, Jamaica's cultural industries face significant barriers to market development and sales. We've talked about how important or how big the brand Jamaica is, but there's still a challenge in gaining traction, and business and marketing skills were seen as the biggest barrier to entry, while digital marketing and distribution was seen as the biggest priority for the survey respondents. Now, support organizations like JBDC have been delivering very significant business development support for the sector, but there's only so many resources. There's only so much that can be done with the existing or with the status quo, that further investment in business skills and market development. And with that, there's a strong focus or a desire for focusing on what the digital opportunities are, digital distribution, in how that would help advance the creative industries for Jamaica. Access to finance is considered a major challenge facing the growth of the industry in pretty much any country. So it's not unique to Jamaica, but it is very significant aspect for Jamaican cultural and creative industries. And the biggest angle to that, or the biggest barrier, was actually convincing funders to appreciate the value of creative work. So there's need to help support the sector in expressing the value of creative IP and unlocking financing options for the sector that are accessed that are more widely understood. The creative industries and cultural industries operate, no one sector or no one actor operates on its own. They're interrelated activities, and as such, you can't expect one support to address all of the issues or single-handedly. There really needs to be this ecosystem approach to developing support in the way that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So looking at all of these supports, entrepreneurship again comes up the most significant, and we can see a recurring theme or thread throughout the research in the importance of entrepreneurship and business skills. But second to that, and essentially neck and neck, would be the networking and collaboration. So there we can see the importance of communication, information, networks, and really making more of what's already happening and who is already in the field. Of course, this is followed by challenges on import duties and tariffs, advocacy, and investment and export. Now, we looked all of these issues, the threads of what the strengths are, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats in the sector. And these have really played a role in bringing the sector to where it is, but they also play a role in where the sector can and should go next in terms of its growth opportunities and what it can and should be doing to address these challenges. I'm mindful of time, so I'm just going to scroll over these because I think we covered a lot of them in the previous slides, but this just captures what the overall strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats have been identified. Now, of course, there's a lot more information behind all of this, but that takes us to where we go next, or where the sector can go next. And so we look of the quick wins, what can be done in the short term for the industry, what can be done in the medium term, and then really in the long term, what is the potential? What is the long-term opportunity or potential beyond 5 years? So in the short term, moving forward, recommendation for quick wins are exploring or using the cultural and creative or COVID-19 recovery. Now that tool for recovery has been used and done in other countries through things like a cultural recovery fund, which not only supports the cultural and creative industries themselves, but perhaps even more significantly, they support the economy. They support the wider society and really act as a catalyst to national. Another recommendation is to establish a national convening body or an umbrella body for the cultural and creative industries. And we know that some significant work has been undertaken in this way already. So it isn't anything new. It's just to encourage that initiative and to carry it on, that it is crucial, and with a national umbrella or convening body, all of the other aspects of this work will be made more easily. To coordinate and structure the CCI industry cooperation and framework. So when you think about the number of government departments and bodies that are all working in various ways to support or represent the creative and cultural industries, there isn't a one-stop shop. There isn't one place to go. You talk to the Ministry of Culture, you talk to the IP office or the Department of Tourism, and they're all related in different ways. But a coordination and cooperation framework would do wonders to help with that. to really improve the understanding and the value of the creative industries, to share with industry and the finance sector, as well as government and policymakers. And to do so would be, looking deeper, that next step, doing an economic impact analysis of the sector. It's also in the short term, an opportunity to look at funding and financing, and where the funding and financing could and should go. We have some proposals in the medium term of where that funding and financing might be well placed to go. But really, in the next year or so, work could be done on determining more specifically. Another angle would be the development of a cultural infrastructure plan. And given the impact of COVID-19 at the moment, we can't lose sight of the physical aspects, the infrastructure aspects of the sector, as we will come back at some point, and a lot of damage can and could be done infrastructure in that time. And finally, thinking about the import and export challenges, the value chain challenges facing the sector, there's an opportunity to study the CCI value chain and to really understand the depths and intricacies of where things are going to and what bottlenecks specifically can be addressed. In the medium term, so 2 to 4 years, there's an opportunity to really channel this brand Jamaica into a cohesive national brand, brings together all of the stakeholders. Something like this, is far bigger and greater than the cultural and creative industries. It's about bringing the cultural and creative industries to the table with the other sectors in leading and championing what this brand is and how it moves forward. That would include, or could include, cross-sectoral initiatives, trade initiatives, partnerships, collaborations, and investments that might include one sector on its own in days past, but with this cohesive channel, it actually is that much stronger coming together with other sectors. There's an opportunity to the IP and copyright environment. There's a number of interesting IP and copyright recommendations that would fall beneath this, including things like state aid for IP and copyright issues, or perhaps a IP and copyright tribunal for issues that maybe don't need to go to the courts specifically, and opening up access to copyright issues and support for artists and creatives. And there's also an opportunity to build capacity in the support structures, deeper, longer term capacity for associations and the institutions in how they can support their membership, how they can become more sustainable themselves, and to think about their own legacy and succession planning. Opportunity to raise the profile and understanding of the value and perception of the cultural and creative industries. And this goes right down to the hard economic figures, right up to what are the career paths available, and sharing with parents and care about the opportunities within the creative industries, and that there are real respectable and reliable sources of income and livelihood out there. There's an opportunity to develop a skill strategy for creative industries. Mentioned the financial support and funding programs for the creative industries as well, marketing and sales. as well as funding for professional development, and then funding for production. Of course, there is some of this funding available already, and so it would very sensible to look at this in light of the CCI value chain in the previous one. And then finally, thinking in the long term, or in the medium to longer term, seeing in the local supply chains, really addressing at the core what the issues are in the supply chain, and starting to value chain that is on shore and localized. All of this driving and sustainable cultural and creative industries that that are very well placed to foster inclusive growth and social benefit for all Jamaicans. And so that that concludes the floor back up to our chair, Harold.
Thank you, Stephen. Lots of food for thought. Lots of food for thought in that. Many of the stories we have heard before, and many we continue. We have to really find solutions, conclusions for many of these stories that we have heard previously, and probably put them in a pot and see exactly how it is that we can eke out a good, sustainable industry from it. At this point, I want to ask, we're going to open the floor for discussion because lots of stuff to discuss in the presentation. But I want to ask my two panelists who are here with me to join me here. Kerry Ann Henry, a VP from Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. Kerry is also a dancer extraordinaire, having many, many years, not too many because you're just 16 or so, Kerry, years of experience in that. So she brings to the table not only the perspective from the education of our creatives, but also being a practitioner in the performing arts industry in Jamaica. And then we have my good friend in his bright yellow shirt. Shirt, the bright those shirts, Azan. We have Suretsi Small with us, and Suretsi is the managing director for Avant Academy of Music. But apart from being the managing director of Avant Academy of Music, Suretsi, which is a social enterprise focused on music and music development for young folks, helping them use music to create a better life for themselves. But apart from that, Suretsi is also a musician extraordinaire. Many persons on this call perhaps know Suretsi first for being a master guitarist. I'm saying not a guitarist, master guitarist, and some say, but whatever. But we know him as a guitarist extraordinaire. Also, online with us, we have Gregory Moore. Now, Gregory is very, very involved and has been involved in the gaming industry for quite a while. And thank you. And in fact, Gregory was a participant in our In Concert series, and he brings the perspective of that subsector on the work. I believe we may have Marissa as well online from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport to also share her perspective. She is the Director of Culture in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. So again, thanks Stephen for that sharing with us, and bearing in mind that, you know, I want to encroach on your understanding of the process of what we're trying to do. That is it's going to be a journey. It's a journey. It's the first step to making sure that we know exactly what's on the ground, what are the immediate wins and immediate opportunities for us. So I'm going to start the conversation with you, Mr. Seretse. Just because you're wearing a yellow shirt, just no other reason, really. And find out from your perspective if there are any top lines that stood out for you in the presentation of the results of the survey and the stage of the mapping process. Can you juxtapose anything that would have stood out from the report with your own experience as either as a musician, as an entrepreneur, as a serial entrepreneur, by the way, or as the head of Avant Academy? What kind of lessons or what kind of comments would come quickly to mind, first to mind when you hear the report?
Well, thank you, Harold. It's a pleasure to be here. And I just want to say, first of all, that the first thought that comes to mind is that the process is important. It's really important. If I could say it one more time. It's really important. We have to think on these things. And as I was listening and, you know, contemplating, making some notes, I think that there is the aspect of the paucity of data. That is an issue that we struggle with. Having enough information. And to be honest, some of the surveys make you think, you know, are people getting the information? Were they able to participate? Are certain sectors truly, how can I say, formalized to even use email in a certain way and to use forms and so on? Some people are just kind of hustling. And so the need for even formalizing and creating more robust and agile systems of communication will allow for more data, yeah? And also the importance of communication and trust. Trust is a big issue, right, in terms of the system. I can remember going to Jam Pro meetings and musicians just refusing to go because I'm just afraid. I'm afraid about tax and, you know, being attacked and being punished rather than wanting to participate. They don't see the formal system as being friendly, right? But one of the things that kept coming out was this idea that we have an extraordinary brand. Now, I would like us to contemplate why we think that. You know, why do we think we have an extraordinary brand? Because a couple of thoughts came to me. Is it that we have an extraordinary brand? Or is it that we're leveraging an extraordinary reputation? There is a difference between a brand and a reputation, right? Reputation is in the space of belief, widespread belief about a characteristic of a thing. But a brand is a different business, marketing, economic phenomenon, because a brand can imply, and I suggest, and I promote, and I instigate, that we should be not thinking so much about the brand, but whether or not we have a brand promise. When you see the brand, or you see a symbol, or you see Jamaica, or whatever it is, what promise comes with the brand? Right? So for example, when I was in Sean Paul band, we went to Jay Leno, did the show. And we were just, you know, you're touring and you're tired and the green room is nice. And we were laughing and joking and, having a great time. And they heard us downstairs. And the first thing that they were thinking was that we were getting high, right? Because we're Jamaican. So this is a brand. There's a widespread belief or reputation, I should say, about who we are. Is that what we're referring to? Is it a reputation? Or is it truly a brand that has specific touch points and specific brand promises that we can monetize? So that's, one of the things that kind of, one of the top things that came to me.
It's like the difference between being creative and innovation. Creativity is good and is a good ingredient for innovation, but it's not.
Yes.
Innovation has to do with value and creating value, sustained value from the creation, from the creative action. Kerry, one of the things in the report that I found very, very interesting, and I kind of had to ask Stephen if I'm sure, is that the large majority of folks that were interviewed in the survey of the 500 odd had tertiary, some form of tertiary education. I found that very interesting, and if it is so. I mean, I'm just a little in disbelief, but it is so. But the truth is that when you think about it, it's in large measure due to persons who may have attended Edna, I believe. What are your top line takeaways from it, both from the perspective of being the only tertiary institution that is focused on the creative and cultural industries in Jamaica as your core, and also your own experience as somebody who has been an entrepreneur, as a dancer for very many years in that industry? What's your top line takeaway?
All right. Morning again. Well, afternoon by now. All right. I would like to open by saying, thank you to JBDC and for the work and the partnership with the British Council Nordicity in the effort to map the creative and cultural industries and all the other partners that were involved. It's a very critical area, and we celebrate it because often you have heard speech about the creative and cultural industries, but what exactly is it? And how, without really having an understanding of the industry, we are not able to create sustainable projects and efforts to really grow and support the industry. So one of the biggest takeaways coming out of it for me was that sense of support. Supporting the industry, and what does that mean? We saw, and for me, that was a validation. So the fact that the great majority had tertiary education, it was a validation to me for the fact that when you look at the parallel, the creative and cultural industries, the reputation and the brand that Siretsi would have spoken about, what the art and the talent coming out of Jamaica, the products that we're seeing. It's a validation that if you want to be a boss in your area, you also need to invest in the education, in the training, in the study. We have always supported that from the Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts. And even for me as an artist who I studied, I had another degree first, but my love and passion and interest said, I need to go and study this area. Now, that is a great platform for any industry. The fact that you have trained, educated persons within their field, it opens the door for many opportunities. So I want to celebrate that. And I do have to put a plug because when you look at the statistics and you look at some of the barriers, one of them was a lack of support for persons entering into the field and studying the field. I feel that in Jamaica, they have this saying, everybody can dance, but not everybody a dancer, right? And when you have to go to events the kind of support that you need. And I noticed that when you look at some of the measures, it doesn't take into account some of the underlying popular and cultural beliefs as well. So when you have to go to an event and they want you to come and present a piece, they want you to perform, there isn't a great understanding of what goes into that. And so when you cost it and you give your price, they say, well, we don't want to, I just want 2 minutes, or I just want a 1 minute. But people don't understand what goes into that. So I think the work to also pull out the value chain, pull out, all those other aspects, very critical. I was also, in terms of entrepreneurship support came up as a large area. But for me, there are a number of things that would go into that. What does that mean? What are those elements? Because, I thought that some of the other indicators also point to that entrepreneurship support. And I had one other question that it would be great to interrogate the data. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Statistics, my other love, math. Big up Statin as well. So I would love to interrogate it because I also wondered, given Jamaica and our environment and persons who are trying to live the life of doing the arts and something else, or some people who are going into the arts, what defined your being able to respond to this survey? How did you determine who is an artist and who can really give information on this area? So, that was something that I was, yeah.
That's very interesting. Listen, one of the reasons why I was so surprised about the high percentage of tertiary respondents, let's put it that way, is that I wondered if it had to do, I shouldn't say this, I sound like Biden now, but I wondered if it had to do with the fact that those of us in the creative and cultural industries with tertiary training and background, perhaps are the, I don't know if everybody sees the need to respond to a survey like this. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? So I wondered about that in particular. Gregory, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. We can't see you yet, though, but we hear you.
Oh, let me.
Gregory, thanks for being here. One of the things that Steve spoke about in and my words now is route to market, and to be able to define a proper route to market for most of the sectors within the creative industries. How is it with the gaming industry? Two questions. The first question is your top line response to the information that has been shared. Perhaps Stephen as well. Not Stephen, Gregory. Persons may know Kerry and Ceretsi, but they may not know you, Gregory. So maybe a quick one-line introduction as to who you are and the great work that you're doing. You cannot tell them all the money that you're making. Don't tell them that. But certainly the work that you're doing. So your top line response, firstly, and secondly, if you could comment on the whole business of route to market for somebody who is interested and has the aptitude and the skills to be in gaming. How does the environment, the ecosystem support route to market for such an individual? Because that popped out as a major takeaway for me. So your first top line, first the one minute introduction as to what you do and who you are and so on. Then your top line, and then perhaps you can talk about the route to market thing.
All right, certainly. My name is Gregory Moore. I am the CEO of Virtual Reality Jamaica, and also the president of the Jamaica Esports Initiative, which is the governing body of esports or competitive gaming in Jamaica. I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, and what significantly popped out to me was the amount of persons involved in the creative industry in terms of just employment, how much persons are employed in the creative industry, how quickly how quickly businesses or small businesses or entrepreneurs can get a team together, especially during a time such as the pandemic. And obviously, it means that persons can quickly adapt to their personal creative side. Um, just in times of trouble. And it also means there's a lot of creatives out there. And it is important from the gaming sector, and this can segue directly into one note that he touched on in terms of forming a central body or a central office or central team that allows persons to kind of just go through, get all the information they need at a one-stop shop. And the reason why I think that is very important, especially for the road to market as a gamer, and I can use the example of the International Olympic Committee. There has been a lot of back and forth about the inclusion of video games in the Olympics. And because the IOC focused so much on physical and traditional sports, they created a liaison group, which was kind of a mixture of different persons from the gaming sector, professional teams, captains, persons who have federations, such as who would be representation for us, just individual freelance players and other persons, developers, publishers, came together for this liaison group for the International Olympic Committee to be able to understand what the esports industry is all about. And I think that is important for Jamaica because there's a vast number of gamers right now that are earning money internationally by entering individual tournaments, but they have, outside of just trying to freelance on their own, there's no centralized situation for the gaming industry that persons can go to say, how can I do this? I can animate, I can code, I can develop, I can design, but how does all of this come together to suit what I do? And a part of what we do at the Jamaica esports industry and our roadmap to getting there. Jamaica has been in gaming. We've been playing games forever. Like everybody would have an experience at some game arcade back in the day or playing mobile games on the phones. And for the competitive sector, what we've done, we decided that the first step that we need to take was to formalize and create some kind of framework for Jamaica, and that was through the process of forming a federation. So for gaming all of these years and having tournaments, it never got us anywhere. And the minute that we formed a federation, and that immediately validated Jamaica, and forming the federation and then joining other international federations, it catapulted us in the international scene. Like within the space of 1 year, we were recognized by almost every esports body in the world. And so where we took a break from hosting a lot of tournaments and said, all right, let's just formalize, let's just do the paperwork, let's do the business side of it, bring in my business experience to the table. It has been phenomenal. And I think that can apply to many sectors. Another sector that we represent is the cosplay industry. And cosplay is huge overseas. People may see it as, oh, a person's just dressing up. It's where persons dress up as their favorite characters and role play as whether video game characters or anime characters. And persons earn money from that. It's a billion-dollar industry. So it's huge.
That's so.
But
Okay.
But my advice to the cosplay industry was to stop trying to do these events and focus on formalizing yourselves as some kind of body and try to come together so that you can be validated. Validation, I think, is not taken seriously. I think creatives kind of focus on their skill, but validating that skill is very important. And that's the journey that we're on. We just formed a Caribbean, we use the same model for Jamaica and formed a Caribbean Federation. And Tencent, which is the largest esports organization in the world because they own most of the esports titles, They just, at 2 o'clock this morning, they sent an email to me stating that they're going to financially support us for our Caribbean tournament, and it will be the largest prize pool that the Caribbean has ever had. So, and that's all because of validation. That's not because we did a lot of tournaments. It's just because we came together and we said, all right, we need to stop playing games, even though we are gamers, and focus on the business side of it. And immediately we got the notice and the attention. And that's just how, we're pushing forward. So I think that is something that persons can focus on, validation. How do we know you are important? Yes, what you're doing is important, but what are the steps that you need to take to validate what you're doing and then believe that you can get some recognition from doing that?
Absolutely. Excellent points, Gregory. And I love this. I love the point about validation. Stephen spoke about it. He didn't call it validation per se. He didn't use that word. But he spoke about the need for valuing the entire industry and what it represents, both at the macro and meso level. But importantly, Siretsa, and I'm gonna kick to you. Importantly, the validation, and Kerry alluded to it as well in terms of your value, your personal value, and being able to value it. But also at the enterprise level, to be able to understand what that value is. Siretsa and I were just talking last night, yesterday evening, about how it is that same thing that you said, Kerry, how you value the art itself, and it has not only to do with the art, but how you value your business proposition, your value proposition that you're bringing to the table, and importantly, how we not do that in an arbitrary way. So data is important at that level as well for us to understand what that valuation looks like and what that validation for that value should look like as well. So, Siretsa, I want to kick to you in terms of your thoughts on that.
The whole idea of industry, and that's something that kept coming back to me as I looked at the presentation. The mention of the word industry is about the movement, or how far we move between the states of raw and finished. And this, I think, in my own opinion, is a challenge for us. Because for a lot of us, we do not associate the identity of Jamaica or the brand of Jamaica with finished. Well, not just sample, but there's a rawness that we expect. A vibrancy, a passion, a kind of eruption.
Yeah, but that's not unsophisticated though. Yes. Go ahead, go ahead, Siretsa, go ahead.
It's just because for example, what he's talking about with the Federation is going beyond playing games. Right. They're playing games, but you have to be able to schedule a meeting, have an agenda, have a plan, work through your, have some semblance of parliamentary procedures. However you do it, we're starting, we're ending, make a point, record your point, send an email structure, right? Now, this is where you are moving beyond activity which is kind of freelance and, if you want to call it, happenstance, if you want to call it. And now we're setting time and place and deliverables. Now, there is a journey along that. Now, the question of sophistication, yes, is a challenging one, right? Because we get into all kind of imperialist and cultural, and there are all kinds of discussions, emotions and identity issues that we get into. But it is something that we need to negotiate because we are not alone. If you're talking about markets globally, then we're dealing with issues of perception of quality and sophistication, and how do we communicate that? So if we're not having this, we can't have the discussion with ourselves, we can't just simply say, well, it's sophisticated to me. You know what I mean? Me love it and me know it have value. How do we translate that and make people understand that there is tremendous value? right? So
Go ahead, Kerry. I know you're
Yes.
bursting at the seams. So.
Bursting. All right. So this is an area that gets me a bit passionate. Value. We all are a part of the ecosystem, which includes our audiences, right? And the thing about it too is that one of the things that we have to understand as a country, and we all have to grow together, is that even we as the artists, and that's one of the great things with art, is that we also teach, inform, and actually have you reflect to something that you probably didn't even know that you need to reflect on. So one of that is we have to make a decision that we are going to consistently produce works of excellence. And that is part of Brand Jamaica. What does excellence mean? Now, people will say, but even when we are creating productions, one of the things at Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts, people will say sometimes, Lord, it kind of just high up there sometimes, or we can't relate to it sometimes, or whatever. But art has so many different levels, but that does not exclude excellence, right? So what we offer is a myriad of experiences for persons who are consuming the arts. Now, there's a process to it. And when you go to a tertiary level institution, you go through process. A lot of our students, when they come in at first, they struggle, because they didn't realize that they just wanted to come and do their art. They didn't realize that there was a process. But that's how you start learning about value. Now, as an audience, and the more that we can expose our audiences to the great plethora of art, they themselves start to demand a different type of value. They know, they understand. You know that I'm also a part of Dancing Dynamite as well. And I will have random conversations in the streets. They stop me and we have conversations. And they know value because they're being exposed to different levels. Now, what I need, and every artist, and what Jamaica needs, is that even at any one point in time, anyone should be able to tell you, if I would like to book a performance, if I would like to purchase a piece of art, I should be able to tell you how much I need to kind of budget for. Right? That level of understanding has to become so ingrained in us. And then we as consumers, so I like to support artists. So when you're going somewhere, don't try to go for free. Don't do it. Don't try to undercut them. Support them because their work has value. There's a lot of input in it. And you, in building Brand Jamaica, in supporting the arts, you should want to participate in that. You should want to pay into that. And that is where we need to get to. And in the sense of standards, what are our standards? I honestly dislike when we get to a place and, like Jamaicans say, we're going boom, bang the thing. There is a space for spontaneity. There is a space for us just coming together and the improvisation. There is that space. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of us. However, that is not always the thing. That, you have to also value rehearsals. You have to value the time it takes to create a piece. You start it, you stop, you look at it, and then you leave it alone. You come back another week, and then you add to it because it changes. There has to be that time as well and value into the work. We rush a lot as a society, and we don't plan well enough to give the space for that value to unfold.
Absolutely. Excellent points. In other words, if I am to say it in another way, if I were to say it in another way, the responsibility for value creation is the entire ecosystems, including the practitioners, including the audiences, eventually, including our policymakers, including our academia, and so on. So we have a journey to go on. And the truth be told, the industries within the creative industries are different stages, yeah, of that, on that continuum. I want to highlight a couple of comments that have come in. in our chat room is buzzing. Somebody say, yes, Siretsi. Nice. I think it was earlier still, so I don't know if yeah. No, never big up straight to our career still. Another. Zine. But also very important. Somebody. Is it Maria that mentioned that Jamaican creatives face a lot of barriers, including the country not being a signatory to the Madrid Protocol. If Jaipa was in the room, they'll tell you that we're working on it. It's in process. We know that for sure. And interestingly, when we share the details of the report, which we will do as in very short order, you will see that Steve and the team spoke a lot about the importance of leveraging our intellectual property internationally, understanding it and leveraging it. Very, very important. It's about intellectual property management. It's not only about intellectual property protection. It's about how you manage it. So we need to, so thanks for that comment. Somebody, is it Keisha? Who made, oh, Keisha Patterson, okay, cool. Who made a comment about the tertiary trained, suggesting that, let me just read it, but instead of telling you my interpretation, are all tertiary trained related to the arts? I think she was referring to the fact that the large majority of the respondents were in fact tertiary trained. There are many persons who are in the creative field as their passion or entrepreneurship, and I guess as have degrees in other areas. Basically, that's what you're saying. They're in the creative field, but they have degrees in other areas, not necessarily related to the creative field. This is an important angle that should be interrogated. Also Suretsi's point of communication and trust is crucial. So, hey, get another big up, Suretsi. Thanks for that. It's very that they have responded to. Yeah, so that's also important. We have, Stephen spoke about a huge gig economy within the creative industries as well, which is very important. Another critical point that was made here, it's asked about traditional practitioners in our communities and how do they fit into a mapping like this. I think you're talking about those persons who carry on our traditional indigenous type of, you know, the dances, the mentor players, the persons who perhaps do indigenous art and craft, things of that nature. Yes, yes, to answer your question, yes, they were involved. Many of them, certainly in the craft area, when we looked at the craft industry respondents, many persons who were involved in what we call traditional skills that created products and businesses out of these skills were involved in the survey, and no, we're not leaving them out because they're a critical part of our ecosystem. But I want to ask, keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, and we'll, if you have questions directed to specific panel members, that's fine. Remember, Stephen is also here online, so you can ask him questions as well. I wanted to touch on something that came out of the recommendations for quick wins, short-term quick wins, and medium-term. Stephen referred to a cohesive kind of approach. Ms. V spoke about the need for cohesion and so on, and spoke about a one-stop shop, the need for a one body. And at this point, I want to big up the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport on their Jamaica Creative Initiative, which I know that part of the objective, one of the objectives of that is to create that one-stop shop, certainly for policy consideration at the Ministry of Culture. So that in a way is on the way. But I think we were perhaps talking about the coming together of perhaps the industry associations as well. I gleaned from the comment that you're talking about the coming together of industry associations in particular, and the ability thereafter to speak with one voice. I want to ask our panelists about the role of industry associations, because to me, I think that's one of the critical things that we need to be looking at as a near win, as a step going forward. And no, we have industry associations in a couple of industries that are fairly vibrant. JAFTA is a fairly vibrant. JANS is a fairly vibrant industry association. There's JAREA and so on. But I believe, as is evidenced by other economies in the world, a critical node in our creative and cultural industries ecosystem is a strong industry association, not only for advocacy for rights of practitioners and so on, but also to help with that market penetration activities, just to have a unified voice, to help with capacity building and things of that nature. Gregory, I know you spoke about it, you alluded to it, but can you give us your thoughts on that and the value of industry associations and strong industry associations in our ecosystem? Gregory?
Yes. Well, we definitely can attest to that in the region, in terms of everybody knows that unity is strength, right? And Jamaica is a small island, and the other small islands around us, individually, we were not recognized as viable options for publishers to support our region. The publishers said that these islands are too small, and for us to
Is that one of your gaming apps
to set up servers. Right. So to have servers to satisfy our gaming needs on this side, wasn't important enough, because the US market and Europe and Asia markets are big enough to get enough money from. Right. As the federation started popping up and the need for regulation within the esports industry and the formalization of the sport, we kept individually trying to speak to these federations. Hey, we need this, hey, we want that. And we decided that, what, let us just come together, have an MOU, kind of like a CARICOM type structure, but in the big, early stages. And all of us coming together between Latin America and the Caribbean, we are now 67 million persons strong as a population number. And before we were able to send our official notification letters to the international federations, we started receiving notification letters from them of acknowledgement of what we've done. So, and that process just started because we recognize we're all trying to achieve the same thing, but we're just speaking individually to different persons. So that example can be used in Jamaica from the creative side, where, okay, we understand that creativity is diverse. The sector is diverse, but we still all want the same thing. So having a unified group where we have different skill sets, not just talent, but business-wise skill set based on, all industry experiences, we can all contribute using the format of a creative industry association. And that will allow us to lobby, as you said, it will allow us to help the development of the persons within the association, but also to pull on the necessary resources just because of the strength by the numbers. So instead of us saying, okay, so let us try and pull on it okay, I have a one project here, I need financial support for that one project. When we became members of the, became acknowledged by the Jamaica Olympic Association, we know all the little game shops, all the little guys around the place started to be like, hey, how can we, how can this help us? And we recognize that everybody together now will now be able to benefit from that funding or any funding that comes to us. And it will just pass down from as you said, from the micro or the macro side, the smaller entities right up to the federation. Everybody will be able to benefit, but we won't be able to benefit individually. So we had to come together. So I think that approach is very important for us, especially for those who find it hard to get financing. If we are able to pull on a pool of funds as an association, we can be better able to say, okay, let us help this or let us put this amount to this, because we understand the issues that persons are facing within the sector. And we also know that it is hard to translate some of those needs to the larger entities, such as a Jampro or a DBJ or other entities that really I recognize that they want to help in some cases. Like there are grants available, there are different funds available, but to tap into those funds, there's always this disconnect because there's a lack of understanding. But forming an association, we can translate that. We will be taken more seriously, even if they're informal players within the association. So, that is how I view that approach, and I think it's a very powerful one.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Gregory. And so say all of us. So say all of us. I want to also emphasize as we wrap the importance of industry associations as data mining points. Very, very important. And internationally, this is how it happens. Yes, we need data, and we need continuous data. We don't need data today and don't need it tomorrow. In the UK and other economies, they map their creative industries to the point where they can tell you the value on an hourly basis. The contribution to GVA in the UK, for instance, that can be mapped and is mapped and can be determined on a daily basis, literally. Yeah. So we need to get to that point. In order for us to get to that point, there are critical things that need to happen. The economic impact assessments need to happen. That's a drill down that Stephen spoke about of the various sectors or industries, whichever you want to call them, within the creative industries. And from this particular situation analysis, we are getting directions, and we have gotten directions as to the next industries that we need to be looking at a deep dive for. So the industry associations will become critical data mining points, capacity building support points, lobbying for benefits point, and so on. So it's very, very, very important. And this is how it has worked in other economies that are serious and have, in fact, gotten to the point of understanding and mapping the details of their cultural and creative industries. On that matter of the data mining, I want to emphasize again the importance of the partnership that we cherish with Statin, PIOJ, in the main, because we are seeing this. We want to be the next UK in terms of the creative and cultural industries, understanding our data and understanding our empirical data. And can you imagine if we can map Jamaica's creative and cultural industries on a daily basis to see the contribution to GDP? That's the stage that we need to get to. But in order to get to that stage, we need to be able to set up structures within the ecosystem itself to mine the data. And there's a thing. Many creatives believe that they shouldn't supply information to Babylon, to AKA government and so on. Not no go so. nothing I go so. It's very important to provide the information, and I must say that that has been changing over the years, and we look forward to that kind of mindset to continue to change. So I want to big up the partnership with Statin and the fact that Statin itself are in the room and are very excited about hearing the results not only of the mapping, but also the conversation in terms of the areas of importance, because in terms of sustainable kind of approach to the development of our CCI information and contribution to GDP, Statin is a critical area. I want to also big up other persons that I see in the room. I see enough practitioners and so on in the room. Big up my Virgin Blacker. Am I allowed to do that? Of course. Well, let me just do it. So big up my Virgin Blacker from Edna and also Blacker, who is from Excelsior, more importantly. As we wrap, I want to give our panelists, and I'm going to give you, Stephen, the last word, so stand by. I want to give our panelists just their last thoughts, just generally in terms of importance of an exercise like this from your perspective. And then, Stephen, we're going to be over to you, and then I'll come back and wrap. So, Stuart, say you first.
I just want to underscore the idea that this mapping is important and that mapping is important, meaning that we should all become mappers, meaning that we need to map our own skills and strengths and, who we are and document that. We need to, when we meet another practitioner, don't just say, are you available for a gig and can you do so and so? Get to know them, get to know their strengths. They may have all kinds of skill sets that you may not understand, may not be aware of. You might have a pianist who is a singer and an engineer, So map. And then the industry associations should also, in the same way, map. This is the time for us to map, because when we do this exercise again, that's the only way we're going to get the information, is when the individuals are doing the mapping and the groups are doing the mapping, the schools are doing the mapping, the companies and the associations. And that's when companies like Nordicity can just find the information and do the statistics rather than having to, beat down the place and sit down in silence going, anybody here? Yeah. Anybody here?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Stuart. Kerry?
All right, thank you. Totally agree with Suretsi. I also want to say and add, so there's the individual responsibility and input, and then we extend that now to the group. So the collaboration. The industry association, very critical. We would have heard, just how much it allows you to grow even further. Together we are stronger, and I believe that culture will need to build on that. Outside of industry association collaborations, I would also say just private-public partnerships as well. So we need to look at collaborating within the sectors, but also with the various institutions. I can't leave without saying that we have a small business development center at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts that has come out of a cooperation with the JBDC, and that has come out of the understanding and the need to support entrepreneurship and to also build the creative and cultural industries. So it's open to everyone, every creative. What we want to see as a part of our combined vision as well as a national vision is that the individual entrepreneur grows into a larger business that offers economic impact, that grows into a larger context that is a national voice, and that grows into a Caribbean context that goes to the world. So we are a big part of that, looking to forge that going forward. Small Business Development Center, JBDC, EMC, VPA, here we go, and we're here to push forward and play our part and continue to change Jamaica.
Well said, Kerry. Thank you so much. Gregory, your last thoughts? Gregory?
Yes, I was just trying to unmute. All right, so I definitely agree with other two panelists that we're living in a data-driven world right now, and it's impossible and not practical to make decisions unless you have the data to support. And unity is strength. Please don't, because other persons are in a similar industry as you are. We see a lot of persons, what you'd call it in Jamaica, maybe try bad mind, but it's not about bad mind in your friend or bad mind in somebody that's in the same industry that you are. Come together and you recognize you can earn more. You'll be recognized by just joining forces. And to the other institutions that are reaching out to us now, I really hope that the existing data and research that has been done by Nordicity helps for entities to understand that the creative sector, though informal, there is a dire need to support the work that is being done. There's a dire need to set up instruments that may not require such a high level of administrative tasks and structures, or to assist with that administrative task and structures while we focus on our arts or our skill sets. So, very important study, definitely looking forward to what comes out of it, and looking forward to forming an industry association to support the entire thing. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Gregory. And I gather that Stephen is, I know he was having bandwidth problems, but he probably, has he been able to come on?
Oh,
No?
I'm here. I'm here.
You're here, Stephen?
Yeah.
Just your last thoughts as we wrap up.
Right. Yeah. So I likewise really agree and appreciate everybody's comments so far. I think that the big takeaways here for us are to really, shift the thinking. Somebody said in the comments about the industry as an ecosystem, and really thinking about that sort of wider approach. As well, looking at the importance of trust in engaging with the ecosystem, and the difference between Jamaica and the reputation Jamaica. Well, also very interested in very interesting points about the difference between creativity and innovation. As well, looking at the sort of nuance of the responses and engagement we had around tertiary education, and really unpicking that, understanding what that finding tells us, and what it tells us more importantly is who's missing from the conversation and who we really need to engage with, not currently engaged. The other element, we're really interested in looking at finding the routes to market, and then the capacity building for industry associations. We really want to know, what do the industry associations need? What can we help, or not we, but what do industry associations need help with, and how can that best be delivered? So those are the key takeaways, and really, really great points in conversation. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Stephen. And the final comment here in our chat says, thank you, Stephen and Nordicity, for your presentation. Valuable information. And it was asked, Sarah was asked, is there an immediate product that might come out of the data and research, such as a public database, website, etc.? The answer to that question is yes. We see as JBDC, one of our major takeaways, one is to make sure that this process is pushed forward. Yeah, that it doesn't stop here. Like I said, it's the first leg of the relay. We have very clear indicators as to what the next steps ought to be, and one of the key next steps is to see acquire resources to be able to do the drill down that is required in terms of economic impact assessment for the various industries. Because this was a composite of several industries in the creative and cultural industries. Now we need to drill down, and we're looking at things like the festival economy. We're looking at performing arts. We're looking at music, film and animation, and I'm sure are perhaps low-hanging fruits that we need to be looking at. The book industry has been very quiet in this particular session, but we have a huge literary arts industry. And they were very, very vocal in terms of our interactions with during the survey period. So yes, our takeaway as JBDC from this survey is that lots more work needs to be done, and certainly we are committed to make sure that the next steps, as have been indicated in the report, are followed. And certainly the results of the report, to answer your question directly, will be available as when the full reports are available. We're going to do a summary version, which will be available on our website, and we'll share it, of course, with the Ministry of Culture as well, for them to make it available to the public, because we all need to be in this thing together. As Seretse and Kerry says, mapping is all our business. It's all our business, and those who need all our need to be seized with the responsibility to map this industry. All of us need to be seized with the responsibility to make sure that this industry moves to the level that we know it has the potential to move to. The industries, the creative and cultural industries. It is perhaps the most valuable asset that we as Jamaicans have, our creative and cultural prowess. Really, we have one of the strongest cultures anywhere in the world, arguably. Everybody knows a Jamaican or want to be like a Jamaican wherever they go in the world, and Steve knows that as well. You know, so it's a very, very strong asset that we have as a country, and our commitment is to make sure that we echo the value that we know that is available for us to be had. And this is the first step in the process. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, my panelists. Thank you, Nordicity, for sharing with us. Thank you, participants, for being with us this morning into afternoon. Stay tuned, because JBDC's Global Entrepreneurship Week activities continue. So watch this space. Thank you very much.